Bleeding purple and gold. From the heart of Los Angeles, this is the LakersNation.com podcast with your host, Trevor Lane.
Welcome to today's show. As always, we are powered by CLNS Media and LakersNation.com. Today's show is brought to you by DraftKings. Head over to DraftKings.com, use the promo code CLNS, and play for free to get your shot at winning $10,000 in cash prizes. Now, for today, we have brought in David Nurse, pro shooting coach for NBA athletes. He's worked with a number of different players. Really excited to have him on. David, thanks so much for joining the show.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So I guess we should probably start off with, what's your story? How did you become a shooting coach for the NBA as well as college players?
Well, it's kind of a long story and an interesting one, and never one that I really thought like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. It kind of just organically happened, and extremely passionate about helping players, improve their shot, but improve their overall game. So I played myself at Western Illinois University, then played overseas in Australia, Greece, and Spain. And I realized at a young age, still playing over there, like, hey, I'm probably not going to make it too far as a 6'2", very unathletic guard over in Europe where they have way too many of those going. So I started working out some teammates of mine that I played with, and then eventually started playing in the NBA. Aaron Baines and Chris Lofton were a few of the first ones.
Oh, Lakers fans know Aaron Baines a little too well.
Aaron's the man. He's the best guy there is. He looks intimidating, and he is on court, but he's the nicest guy there is.
He killed the Lakers.
Yeah, I know. He's doing awesome.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. We played together in Greece on the same team, and then one day he's in the NBA with the Spurs, winning championships, and I'm not playing anymore. But it all worked out great. The Lord had a great plan for me, and being able to work with NBA players, and instead of helping develop myself, help develop them. So it just kind of grew organically through agents, then becoming involved in pre-draft and sending their players, and then teams wanting some consulting for it, and getting brought on by the Brooklyn Nets a couple years ago, and now just being able to work with a ton of really, really good players and helping them become better shooters and, like I said, better players overall on court.
So I know you've worked with athletes at a number of different levels, whether it be NBA or college or foreign leagues or wherever. Mm-hmm. Is there a difference that you find between working with the guys that are in the NBA versus working with a player who's maybe earlier on in the stages of working on their shot, like a college player or even a high school player?
So, yeah, there's definitely a difference. And I think the biggest difference comes not from the age, but how bad they want it. What is their passion for actually improving their shot? Because people will say, oh, man, he's too old to fix his shot. He can't do it. He's too far into his habits. But it all comes down to if they want to. If they want to fix their shot, if they want to change their shot, no matter what age they are, if they're high school or NBA, they will. And of course, it's easier to use the example of using clay, molding clay. If it's early on in the process, you can mold it exactly like you want. It's a lot easier as far as the muscle memory goes compared to if they're more set in their ways. It'll just take more time to break it down and then develop where you want them to change. But the difference comes down to how bad they want it and how bad they are willing to listen to your advice. And a lot of it comes down to, basically the trust that they put into you. And that's the biggest thing that I work with players, is just gaining their overall trust, the relationship. And if they trust me, then they'll believe what I'm telling them. If they don't, they're not going to believe anything I'm telling them.
Sure, yeah. For a lot of these guys, the professional players, these are guys who are making their living off of playing basketball. So they're putting a lot of faith in you if you're going to be the guy that's going to tweak their shot or mess with things. So, I imagine just developing that relationship has got to be incredibly key. So what does it take? What do you focus on when you're working with a guy as far as developing a good jump shot? And we'll jump into Lakers stuff in just a second, but across the board, what do you try to get players to do in order to have a successful jump shot?
So every player is different. I'll never come to a player and say, hey, you have to do it like this or a cookie cutter mold like this. Everybody's bodies are different. Their movements are different, and they're at that level for a reason. So I'm never going to come and say, hey, you got to do this or you got to do that. They're that good and in the NBA for a reason. So I'm going to work with them. And I always want to make sure when I'm working with them that they know we're going through it together as a team. Like, I'm not telling them to do it, but we're coming together, putting our minds together to work to progress with it. So the main thing, if I could put my finger on the main thing that I'm going to give them, is going to be overall confidence in their shot. Confidence is about 90% of your shot as it is. If you believe it's going in, you got a much better chance of making it. And being able to put these players in the most advantageous situations on the court and confidence-wise goes a long way just in itself. I could tell you stories about just sending players film of their best highlights in college and then seeing what they do the next night on the court just because of the confidence that they've built from it. As far as structurally, though, I'll make sure that the most important thing is that they have a fluid jump shot, that there's no pauses in the shot, that it's smooth, and that they feel good about it. Because if they don't feel good about it, then there's no chance of it. But I mean, I could talk for days on all the little small things that a player might need that can make the best jump shot possible. But those are the main topics.
So confidence is key, and even if a player jump shot structurally isn't the best, they can kind of make up for that with confidence is what I'm hearing. And of course, I mean, you knew that today we were going to talk a little bit about Lonzo Ball, because right now all the buzz is about his shot. I mean, let's face it, he shoots funny. He doesn't shoot like most people do. Mm-hmm. And since he's struggled so far with his shot in the NBA, I figure he's a guy that we should spend a decent amount of time on, especially because you've actually worked with Lonzo Ball. So what's your assessment so far of his shot? And are there little fixes you see that he should be making, or kind of what's your overall take on Lonzo and his shot right now?
So with Lonzo, I mean, everybody will see on the surface that it looks a little bit different than most shots, and that's the obvious scene. But what Lonzo does really well is he keeps his hand underneath the ball. So even though he brings it across his body, he still gets his hand underneath the ball, and he still gets his fingers pointed straight in the basket on his finish. So he's not missing left or right, which is, I mean, obviously very important. He, like his biggest thing is the timing, getting the shot off in the motion, which ideally he can compact it a little bit more like, you remember Kevin Martin, obviously, with his shot and how he came into the league. And it was a big loop that Martin had, but he compacted it and made it a smaller, shorter loop to get a shot off even quicker. So I think that's an adjustment that Lonzo will be able to make, and I know the Lakers coaches very well, and I know they're very good. Luke's a great coach, and they do a very good job there. So they'll get that tweaked. Also, Lonzo, he's got very smooth release on his shot, and he's got effortless range. Part of his effortless range is his lower release. So I know people think that could be an issue with guys having hands in your face, but his timing on his shot, getting his shot off, is based on his low release, kind of like Steph Curry does. If you watch Steph Curry, he basically still has his toes on the ground when he releases, so he's shooting ultimately on the way up. And Lonzo does the same thing with his release. The main thing that for Lonzo this year in his shooting percentage from threes, I would say, is Lonzo's a better shooter off the dribble than he is in catch and shoot situations, because he uses that dribble to propel himself into his shot. And right now he's shot a lot more catch and shoot threes than he did at all at UCLA last season. So I think the more he can shoot off the dribble threes, the higher his percentage will be.
David, we're going to take a quick break so I can talk about DraftKings. Basketball season is back, and now that your favorite hardwood heroes have returned to the action, it's time for you to put your fantasy knowledge to the test to win huge cash prizes every night playing one-day fantasy basketball at DraftKings.com. I am a huge fan of fantasy basketball, and this is a great way to do it because at DraftKings there are so many ways to play. You can choose from public contests with huge cash prizes or private contests where you can compete against your friends. They've even got beginner and casual contests where you'll play against people of similar skill levels, so there's something for everyone here. And the best part is you get to draft a new team each day, and drafting a team is arguably the best part of fantasy, and you can do that every single day. The only thing better is you can actually win cash by doing this. Just ask Dan from St. Louis or Jeremy from Austin. They both turned a $3 entry into $1,000. There are huge cash prizes and bragging rights waiting you only at DraftKings. Use the code CLNS at DraftKings.com to play free with your first deposit for your share of $10,000 in total cash prizes tonight. Don't wait. Use that code CLNS at DraftKings.com now to choose your lineup, and you can seriously cash in tonight. Again, that's CLNS, DraftKings.com, the game inside the game. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Now back to my discussion with David Nurse. There were a lot of concerns coming out of the draft that he would struggle a little bit if he was shooting off the dribble, moving to his right because the way he brings the ball back across his body to the left. And I asked him about that. He said it's no worries that he can get that shot off, but we still don't see him take that very often. Is that something that could be a problem? Like, can he really only get that shot off if he's moving left off the dribble? That's what we see him tend to go to most.
That's what I heard a lot of too. Scouts would ask me that too, going into the draft. And the thing about Lonzo is I've seen a lot of NBA players at that age and a lot of players, and Lonzo is the smartest kid I have ever seen at his age and being able to figure things out. So I have absolutely no worries. Just like he said, he'll be able to figure it out. He will. Like, he's that good. I don't know if he'll get more of into a step back off that, or he'll go more to his floater, which he's got great touch on his floater. But I don't foresee that being an issue at all.
So what then would be your fix for him if you were to try to diagnose his shooting percentage here and try to get him in the flow? Because it seems like, I mean, you mentioned confidence. There's been a few instances where we've seen him actually not look that confident in his shot and look a little bit dejected after he's thrown up a few misses. And that's a little bit surprising because he comes across as an extremely confident person, and it's rare to see that break. But a few times this season we have seen that happen. So what would you do to try to get him on track?
Yeah, first, I mean, confidence. He is a very confident player, and when he's playing with that swagger that he has, I think he's one of the best point guards in the NBA, even at his age. That would be the first thing I would do. I would just continue to empower him daily on how good of a shooter that he is, show him where his best shooting situations are, show him how good he is shooting off the dribble, show him how he can be better at catch and shoot, basically putting him in his best offensive situations that he can be in and letting him know, hey, these are your highest, this is where you're shooting. Like, let's say, I'm not exactly sure what his percentages are from each spot in his heat maps and his shot charts, but I would look in depth on that. I would look in depth on, hey, what's he shooting off? What's his percentage shooting off 1 or 2 dribbles compared to 4, 5, or 6, or the catch and shoot, and just scheming with him, along with him, where his highest percentages are. So it's also empowering him that, hey, these are the spots that I want to get to, and when he gets to those spots, he's more confident in those spots because it's already built in his mind that, hey, this is my highest level shots right now. This is what I want to get to. So as far as that goes, empowering him with the confidence of being able to shoot his highest level shots. As far as structurally goes, I would work with him to compact his motion just slightly. I wouldn't go into any big overhaul. And I know people have talked about, do you do a whole breakdown over the off season of it? I don't think you break down his shot. He's a left eye shooter, and if you bring him completely to the right side, like let's say Klay Thompson, who I think has the most beautiful form in the NBA, if you make him shoot like Klay Thompson, who's a right eye dominant shooter, it's not going to work because Lonzo's left-eye. That's why he brings the ball more to the middle of his body. And he brings it a little bit too far to the opposite side, I would say. So if I made the structural changes, it'd be a quicker compact on his motion and just slightly more back to the center. So I like to work on over-exaggeration with players. And when I have time, because it's a process. You can't fix those type of things during the season. Like, the only things you can really fix during the season, during games, is confidence, building confidence, showing players where the highest level shots are, which can work wonders, those two alone, and their follow through and follow through with arc in the finish. So those are the main things that you can finish during the season. Structurally, that's got to be an off-season build. That's got to be a progressive game plan that you have together. So those are the two main structural things I would do with Lonzo, is over-exaggerating in the off-season, so forcing him to come farther to the right. So naturally it's going to come back a little bit more to the center. And then I would make sure that he had his motion a little bit more compact.
So in your mind, I mean, you've heard, of course, all the talking heads and the pundits out there that have said, Lonzo needs to completely deconstruct his shot. It needs to be a complete teardown. They need to change the way he shoots, and that it's all that stuff's going on. Because, I mean, hey, look, if he had a jump shot like everybody else, if he had a jump shot like Ray Allen or anybody that has been known as a good shooter over the years, then missing these shots would still get criticism, but people wouldn't be jumping on his case for completely reworking this shot. But in your mind, his shot doesn't need to be torn down and completely reworked. It's just some little tweaks here and there, right?
Yep. I think it's little tweaks. The main thing is his motion. He doesn't pause in his shot. The ones that you have to break down and reconstruct are as if it's like a two-piece shot. Lonzo has a fluid one-piece shot. Yeah, he brings the ball across his body a little bit too far, but it's still a fluid, smooth motion. So I don't think he needs a full breakdown, reconstruct of it. It's just small adjustments. And as being a shooting coach and working with a lot of shooters, like, I'd love to say everybody look like Klay Thompson, but it's just not how people are built. Bodies are different, like I said. Wide shoulders different. Size are different. Mentality is different. Right eye versus left eye dominant. There's a ton of variables that go into players, and when you work with a shooter, it's so mental that you have to figure out exactly what type of learner they are. How do they do better with seeing it? Do they do better with hearing it? Are they growth mindset versus fix? What type of person that they are? So there's so much that goes into it, and just being able to say, hey, looking at a shot, oh, that doesn't look pretty on the surface, right, that we need to reconstruct it is definitely not the right approach.
So you mentioned that a lot of shooting is mental, and I think one of the places where you see that the most is at the free throw line. I mean, we hear all these stories about Dwight Howard shooting 80% from the line in practice, but then in game situations, he can't hit them. And then if you think back to say Bruce Bowen, who spent a season shooting a higher percentage from three than from the free throw line. Well, we've seen Lonzo struggle quite a bit even from the free throw line. Is that a more of a mental thing as well, or is that something where you would adjust his form there too? Because sometimes that can be even a little bit of a different art form.
Yeah, it can be a little bit different of an art form. Lonzo's shot enough of them that he has the range. He knows how to shoot a free throw. It's mental. And there were times last year at UCLA that it almost looked like he was bored to be at the free throw line, that he didn't concentrate as much as he needed to. But no, I have no worries about Lonzo at the free throw line. He will be a very good free throw shooter. And I think as far as terms of, you say the Dwight Howard thing too, people wonder like, how can he shoot that good in practice and not do it in the games? And same with DeAndre Jordan and those guys. And I think a lot comes down to the coaches being able to put them in those situations. There's a lot of teams will say, hey, let's finish with 25, 50 free throws at the end of practice. But how many times do you do that in a game? You got to make everything in practice, even free throws, as game situational, as pressure situational as possible. So they're able to simulate those in practice. And when they get in the game, the pressure of the game is, hey, we've had this in practice before based on our pressure simulations.
Sure, yeah. I mean, in a game, you're running up and down the floor, and then suddenly you stop. You have to shoot two, then you're up and back down the floor again. And practice, you maybe get to shoot 50 in a row, so you get into a rhythm. So there's definitely a difference there, that's for sure. But yeah, the free throw shooting is always an interesting thing to watch with players. You can tell some guys that just don't want to go there. They don't want to have to go and shoot free throws, and others do. But maybe Lonzo just likes flying up and down the court so much that he doesn't want to have to stop to shoot free throws.
Hey, I would keep him flying up into the court. He is unbelievable at that.
Yeah, he is. He is faster than I imagined when he gets the ball in his hands and he can take off.
There's guys that have just that extra gear that you don't know how to really explain, but Lonzo has it. Like, that was the thing at UCLA. We just were like, Lonzo, go downhill. Like, all we'd say to some extent. Like, just whenever he gets going downhill, he's such a high-level decision maker that he's going to make the right play. He's got the extra gear to put it into another speed. He's just so good. And I know his comparison is Jason Kidd, which everybody compares him to, which is really funny, because when I heard that comparison, I was like, yeah, it's a great comparison. I'm sure I've heard it a bunch of times, but I had a friend of mine who played with Jason at Cal who was like, man, we got into a race, and like, I'm more athletic than Jason. This is this guy speaking. I'm more athletic than Jason. I'm faster than Jason. But he smoked me in the race because he's just got that extra gear to push ahead. And that's the same thing with Lonzo.
He's just got that burst to him. I mean, you've been working with him for a while. We've even seen that burst on the defensive end a bit. He still can get beat off the dribble, which is what a lot of people suspected coming out of college. But he's been a lot better there than we expected. And his recovery is incredible. He uses his frame so well to contest shots after he gets beat. So, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on that end of the court, but I know right now Lakers fans are pretty pumped about Lonzo's defense.
Oh, man, he's a great defender. And that's the thing, too. That's whenever at UCLA, if we put him on a player that was really good, like a Markelle Fultz or someone that was going to be a challenge, Lonzo he'd lock down. But if it was someone that he didn't really care about, it was just his interest level. And at the NBA, obviously, everybody's a really good player. So, he has the tools to be a great defensive player.
I think that's kind of the underreported side here right now, is that everybody is just jumping all over Lonzo's shot. And I don't think we're giving enough credit to how good he's been in all the other areas of the game, especially if you look at his defense, and then also his rebounding has been amazing.
Yeah, his feel and sense for the game is top 5 in the NBA, I would say right now. I'll go out there and say that he's that good, and he's going to continue to get that much better. And once he figures out how to play in the pick and roll in the NBA too, because he's still learning that. He didn't know it that well at UCLA, but he's continuing to grow and get better at that. And once he figures it out to a really high level, he will. I think he'll be the best point guard in the NBA.
Wow, well, we Lakers fans certainly hope that you're right in that. I mean, yeah, he's got a ton of potential, and if he could hit that level, if he can start thriving in the pick and roll, then yeah, he's got a ton of potential to be very, very good. Now let's talk here about the Lakers in general for just a moment before we wrap up. Luke Walton has put in kind of an interesting strategy where the Lakers were just not very good at shooting threes this season. This team that they've put together doesn't have a ton of three-point shooters, at least not compared to the general NBA, right? I mean, if we went back in time 10, 15 years ago, then this is a great three-point shooting team because you've got a center that can shoot threes and everything. But for today's game, they don't have a great three-point shooting squad. So instead, they focused on attacking the rim. Is that something that's going to be sustainable long-term, like throughout the course of this season? Or would you be concerned about that and try to get guys to shoot a higher percentage from deep if you could?
I mean, I have a ton of respect for Luke. I was able to get to know Luke well and be able to learn from him in Golden State. And I think he's one of the smartest basketball minds there is. So I know with this concept that he's putting in that I know it's gonna work. And I know, like Lakers fans, you should be at ease. You have Lonzo, you have Luke, you're gonna be okay. Just it takes some time. So no, I think it's great. Like I always tell players and when I consult for teams, you want to have that attack the rim first mentality. You want to have get in the paint, get downhill. And if you can get to the rim, that's the first option. And then from there, that's where you build off of your driving kicks for shooting. Because the highest level threes, percentage-wise, come from paint touches to kickouts, come from offensive rebounds, attacking the rim to kickouts. Shooters are much better, shoot a higher percentage when they're stepping directly into a shot off a catch and shoot compared to if they get a ball swung to them and they have to turn their body, turn their eyes. So I think Luke's concept as attacking the rim is a great strategy, and it also just is going to lead to higher percentage three-point shooting based off that as well.
Yeah, it's something where, I mean, last season he didn't really get much criticism from fans. They were just excited that Luke was there, and the energy level around the team completely changed. And this season we're starting to see people kind of nitpick at him a little bit more for his rotations or for just the style of play and things like that. But it does seem like he's kind of growing as a coach, just as these players are growing. I mean, this is only his second season as a head coach. Have you noticed a change in Luke or growth from Luke just from knowing him and seeing the way that he coaches games over the last few years?
Well, one thing I know about Luke is he's always going to be a relentless learner. And that's why I know he's going to succeed at such a high level. The best coaches that I see in the NBA are constantly wanting to learn, constantly wanting to grow. They're not the old school coaches that you'll think of and be like, okay, nobody can tell me anything. Like Luke will go to any lengths to learn and help his players, and he puts so much into the guys and he cares so much about them and he's relational with them. I think he's great in all aspects, and if Lakers fans are getting anxious about it, and I think they're crazy. Like they're going to end up blowing a good thing if they keep complaining about it, because he's going to build this. He's going to turn the Lakers around. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, I mean, Lakers fans they're a fanatic group. They kind of live and die with the team, which is, I mean, you got to love that. But
I love that, yeah.
I'm just watching online. I see people on Twitter, on Facebook, all over the place. If the Lakers win, it's sunny skies and everything is great. And then anytime they lose, it is the end of the world. The sky is falling. So it's kind of up and down, highs and lows. This roller coaster, but we've just seen a little bit more on coming at Luke. But I agree. I think that he's growing. He's a great communicator. The way that he works with these players, and it seems like he's getting the guys to buy in, and that's key. That's critical for a coach. So yeah, I'm of the mindset the fans that are complaining need to just kind of pump the brakes and appreciate what they've got right now. I mean, hey, this is Thanksgiving weekend, right? I mean, be thankful for what we've got.
Exactly. There you go. Yes, I totally agree.
All right. Well, hey, David, you've got well, first of all, I guess we should tell people to make sure they follow you on Twitter. You've got all kinds of wonderful stuff on there at DavidNurse05. So make sure that they go follow you there. Where else can they find your work? Where else should they be looking for all the different things that you do online?
Yeah, on Twitter, I have a podcast that I put out. It's called The Game of Life, where I'll bring on NBA players and talk to them and some high-level performers in other areas. So you can check that out. But yeah, that's probably the main places. Got a website that's all about breaking down the shot. So if people want to check that out and get your shot broken down by me, check it out at perfectshots.com. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, cool. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on here. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. And anytime, let's jump back on later in the season when Lonzo's stroking the three and the Lakers got things turned around, and we'll talk some more about that.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's definitely do that, and hopefully that does happen.
It will, all in time.
All right, so that was David Nurse, professional shooting coach, has worked with a number of different NBA players. Definitely love having him on. Don't forget, guys, go check out his Twitter account at DavidNurse05 and his Game of Life podcast. It's a good one. That's going to about wrap things up for today. Hope everyone had a fantastic Thanksgiving weekend. Don't forget, head over to LakersNation.com for all the latest breaking Lakers news, and go to iTunes. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to this show. If you want to get a question answered on air, just leave it in the review section, and we'll make sure we discuss it. That's it for today. My name is Trevor Lane, and this has been the Lakers Nation Podcast.